Welcome, Mel.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
To Overheard Online.
Perfect.
Unfortunately, I did lose my voice, but it'll be good.
Okay.
It'll work.
Sounds raspy and nice.
Thank you. All right. So are you ready for some stories?
I am ready.
So I don't know if I fully went into exactly what the podcast is doing.
No, not fully. Yeah.
We're just basically going to read some Reddit stories about things that are metaphysical or, those stories that people post on Glitch in the Matrix and get your live reactions on some of them and discuss.
Okay, let's do it.
Okay, so we'll start off pretty slow, I guess, or, with a shorter thread.
Okay.
So the first thread is from r/ask Reddit. It is 14 years old. The thread is titled, Reddit, Tell Me Your Glitch Stories. In this thread, the OP, which is the original poster, they start with their own story. And even though it is totally mundane, they are totally dumbfounded by the experience.
Okay.
They write, we have breakfast laid out at work every morning. It's just a simple buffet, eggs, bacon, that kind of thing for about a dozen people. I'm usually one of the first on my team to arrive. So when I got there, the kitchen was empty as usual. I walk in, there's a ceramic egg tray on the counter with 12 freshly boiled eggs, one in each spot. I take one egg, walk over to the trash and peel it. Then I head back to the tray and stop dead in my tracks. There are 12 eggs in the tray again. No one else came in. I didn't hear a sound, but somehow the tray is full, just like before. I even touched the extra egg. It was just as warm as the others. It's not a big thing, nothing earth-shattering, but it was definitely strange. And since you don't get presented with a quantum egg from a parallel universe every day, I peeled it and ate it too. Have you ever had All right, so what do you think of that story?
Okay, so first off, I feel like boiled eggs for a work breakfast is like funny. Right?
But at least they're like sealed in a sense. So it's kind of like you can go and peel it yourself and it's clean, I guess.
That's true.
Scrambled eggs, you don't really know what's been going on there.
Yeah, 100%. They get cold.
Have you ever made yourself something and then gone back and have it just look different than you remember? Because like an egg, I can't imagine taking an egg from a carton of a dozen eggs, and then I go back and there's another egg.
I actually just boiled eggs this morning. I boiled 6 eggs this morning from a fresh carton.
Okay.
And then I had the carton laying out on my counter, and I went back, so I was like, I should put it in the fridge. And there were probably 6 eggs there.
What do you mean?
No, like there's probably six eggs left because I boiled 6 of them.
Okay,
and then I left the rest of them in the carton on the counter. And I went back to put them in the fridge, and I didn't check that there were still 6 eggs there, but I assume they were. I wasn't looking for one of them to have disappeared.
So it's possible that this happens, but nobody double checks, and then they're kind of like, oh, I must have been confused because it doesn't usually happen back to back.
It's possible. I don't know how much I believe that there was another egg that came out of nowhere. I would never think that. But
yeah, I feel like if it were me, it's like one of those situations where you put a knife down or you take a knife out and you're like, where's the knife? And you're like, oh, it's still in that's weird. But like you don't really think about it in the moment. Usually it's not something that has an exact number and then you take one and then that thing is back.
Yes. I feel like I get that if I like walk into a room and I'm sure that I placed something somewhere and it's not there. So
one of the reasons why we have this thread here and we've read this initial story is that there's a story underneath it that's really interesting from a commenter.
Okay.
So so even though I don't think that one is as crazy of a story, there is a story underneath that I really found interesting.
Okay.
They write, a few years ago when I was around 20, I kept having dreams about a woman with long black hair named Aurora, pronounced Aurora. The dreams were all different, but her distinct face and that name always showed up in them. It started to drive me nuts. I'd wake up confused, Googling her name, trying to figure out how I was connected to her or if I was in some way. After a few months, she stopped appearing. I figured my brain was just being weird. Fast forward a few years, it's Halloween night in 2009. I'm in the car with a friend, stopped at a gas station. As I'm about to pull out and merge onto the highway, I get a phone call from a random number. I stop the car and pick up the phone, but no one answers. Behind me, a driver gets impatient, honks, and swerves in front of me instead of waiting for me to move. The second they get onto the highway, a silver Civic loses control and crashes into them. Both drivers died. It would have been me if I hadn't gotten that phone call. Hours later, out of gratitude and pure curiosity, I called the number back. It rang 3 times, then went to voicemail. Hi, you've reached Aurora. Please leave your name and number. I'd never had goosebumps like that in my entire life. I called again the next day, still confused. This time, a woman answered. We got to talking. I told her the whole story, even about the dreams. She said she has no idea how I got her number and that she didn't remember calling me. I asked if she had Facebook just to check. She did. I looked at her profile and holy shit, it was the woman from my dreams years ago. If that's not a glitch in the Matrix, I must be crazy.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
For some reason, I feel like dreams are like another level of like the second that it's in dreamland, I'm like, oh yeah, that's so believable. Like that there's something that could be there.
There's this thread that I just stumbled on Reddit. I think it's called Mall something. It's this idea that there is this place in dreams that people go to and they actually find other lucid dreamers, I guess. And they like see things and meet people. And it's a cool idea, but people
That's cool.
go.
That's like
people
the Habbo
discuss
Hotel,
it.
like
yeah, but in a
your
dream. Exactly.
That's so cool. That's really, yeah.
Have you ever lucid dreamed before?
No, I've tried. Like I've played around with it, like read some articles.
You've read articles or you've played around with it?
Like both. Like I think I like, you know, lucid dreaming 101, like what do you do? And I think someone told me about like a light switch. Like you have, it's almost like Inception. It's like you have the little, I want to call it a dreidel, but it's,
I mean, you can call it that. It's like a fidget spinner that he spins on the table.
Yeah. That like signifies to him when he's like in a dream or in the real world. Like I feel like there's something about that with lucid dreaming where you're like, have something that you check, and I think someone told me like a light switch, and if you can do it in the dream or something like that.
I think one of the things is counting your fingers, if I'm not mistaken, to try to stay in a dream. But there are other things like when you wake up, if you write down your dream instantly, like you get up in a fog and you write down what your dream was, and then you go back to bed. It's supposed to keep you in an in-between more so, I think. Or like setting an alarm for certain times at night, waking up and then going back to bed, but writing down if you're lucid dreaming in the moment.
That's interesting.
There are cool things that you can do. I've played around with it, but I have lucid dreams.
You do?
I do. And my nap today before you came was a lucid dream.
Wait. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Wait, what are you doing in them?
It's totally...
What are your fun things?
So sometimes they're scary because sometimes I realize I'm in the middle of a nightmare and I realize I'm sleeping, but I'm awake, but I can't fully get out of the in-between. So it's this weird, it's like I'm forcing myself to wake up by moving all my limbs in the dream, trying to get through to my physical body. That's a weird one.
Yeah.
But one of my more fun ones is I love flying in my dreams.
I was going to say, I feel like that's what I would do.
And you know what's fun? It's like one of the interesting things is it's so cool to see how your mind comes up with how to deal with the idea while making it seem real. So with the flying, I like almost puff my body up and then like backstroke once I get to a certain height. And that's how I fly in my dream. And I can't even describe how my brain came up with that.
That's yeah.
But it's like pulling yourself up to like an area where you have less weight and then you just kind of backstroke.
That's so funny.
And
that's your way of flying. That's your version of flying.
I wonder if it was in a video game somewhere one time and my brain now like has
like
this
Mario Party or something where it's like
exactly
press the X and then you puff and then you
exactly. And like then my brain has this idea. But back to the story, what I find so interesting about it is the fact that it crossed over from a dream. It's almost like a premonition that this person's going to do something important. But what's weird is that the person doesn't even remember doing it.
Yeah.
That they're like, I didn't call you, but it's the person from their dreams who they have a missed call from that is the reason that they didn't drive into the intersection.
Yeah. Well, that person doesn't know this person at all. Like that was just a random phone call that he got, I assume, or she.
Yeah, well, when you call somebody back on their phone and they're like, I didn't call you. I don't know why. Like, no, I swear to God, you called me because I am only pressing redial.
Yeah.
Okay, we can move on
back and you're like, oh, sorry. They're like, oh, sorry, that was a missed call. I was like, okay.
Yeah. Well, at least in those cases, they remember calling you, but I can't imagine them not even remembering calling you.
Yeah, no, it's totally wild. Aurora.
Yeah. Somebody else. So there's another story here. Somebody writes, it's another top comment. I was driving home during a storm when I noticed a side road up at the local golf course was blocked off with flashing barricades. I also then spotted a Mercedes parked just in front of the barricades, hazards blinking. Thinking someone might need help, I pulled over, got out, and walked up to the car. I shined my flashlight into the back seat. There was a man slumped over, apparently asleep. I figured maybe I had a car full of drunk people. I moved up to the driver's window, tapped on the glass, and shined my light inside. The driver was sitting, bolt upright, unmoving, staring straight ahead. He didn't blink, flinch, or move at all. Over at the passenger seat, somebody was slumped forward onto the dash. At this point, I was getting creeped out. I called the sheriff's station and requested a Code 2 unit, no lights or sirens, to help me check on them, since the doors were all locked. Well, I was still on the phone with dispatch to grab my go bag. The dispatcher asked me to get the car's license plate, just as a power company cherry.
Wait, what's a go bag?
A go bag is like a bag in your car of emergency supplies.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
yes.
Okay.
So while I was still on the phone with the dispatch, I walked back to the truck to grab my go bag. The dispatcher asked me to get the car's license plate just as a power company cherry picker truck rumbled down from the closed road. I went around the truck to get the car's license plate number, but the Mercedes was gone. I spoke to the driver of the truck, and he told me that there was an 80-foot tree down across the road up ahead, and that's why the road was closed and it wouldn't be open for at least a day. So with a tree blocking one way and barricades blocking the other, the question is, where did the car go? The experience has kept me unsettled. Now, whenever I stop to assist when I come across any accidents and hazards, I become a bit unsettled.
Eerie. Super eerie.
Someone responds to this. I can't help but picture you as a minor character in a fantasy novel, the kind of person who checks in on the heroes to make sure they're okay, and then just as you turn away, they get swept up into some bigger adventure or are abducted. It's like I'm reading the story from the perspective of somebody on the sidelines, and honestly, that's pretty cool.
That's sweet.
Someone else writes, they were in the middle of getting beamed up, like funny. Abducted.
Yeah. They were the chosen ones.
Mm-hmm. Another person tries to give a more rational explanation.
Okay.
They say, I'm pretty sure I can explain what happened to the car. Where did it go? Most likely down a hidden driveway. And why hidden? Because it probably leads to a marijuana grow or a meth trailer. As for the people slumped over the car, probably drugs, though not necessarily marijuana or meth. Why did the flashlight suddenly wake up the driver? Either the light startled them, or maybe because you approached confidently, almost like a cop. For context, I grew up in what's probably the marijuana capital of the US. Around here, if you see unmarked driveways in the hills, you don't go up to them. Not just to be polite, but because you want to avoid running into someone with a semi-automatic or worse. I've heard plenty of stories about hidden driveways, even if I've never seen one myself. My brother is now a cop and SWAT member in the area, and he's had his own run-ins with surprise cars on paths that are hidden. So that's a possible explanation. Yeah, okay. What do you think?
I mean, I have a visual of this like weird person staring out the dashboard with like a freaky look in his eye that's just like blank. And then I have a visual of someone bent over in the passenger seat. So yeah. I don't know what to do with that.
You're like, now I see it, but what do I do?
But like, what were they doing? Like,
yeah. I mean, there are also so many stories of dimensional slips or time slips where I think well, I think, where theories are that the veil's dropped and that time's not linear and you kind of see, and we'll get into that later on.
From like a different timeline.
Exactly.
Or like that was there, but it was like 5 minutes ago.
Or like maybe a bad car accident there from like beforehand.
That'd be.
And there's like some energy there and there's a car that just, in one of the other episodes, Kieran was telling a story of being at a party and having someone come to her and tell her the story of when they were driving into a town and they thought they hit somebody because there was a man in the middle of the road suddenly out of nowhere that just stared at them and they like drove through or I guess pulled over and like tried not to hit it.
Wait.
And then they got out of the car and there was nothing there. And then when they went to wherever they were going, that city, that party, they told the story at whatever the party was. And people were like, oh yeah, we know about that. That happens. That's not a rare event. That does happen. And it turns out that there was an accident there and a guy was hit by a car and randomly people just claim to see this man being hit by this car or they think they're about to hit this man. And people think that there's some maybe glitch or something happening in that area that they can see the accident.
I think I've read this story before. Like I think I've read this story where they're like leaving a party and they go out and they look because they feel like they've hit something. They swear there was nothing on the road and they're like, it must have been an animal, but it wasn't an animal. I feel like I've heard that. I feel like it's not even reason.
A lot of these stories I find are not unique experiences. So either people are getting real creative with their storytelling where they're like, okay, I know this is a thing I'm just going to start. But also so many people talk about these things. I'm like, oh my God, what are some of them? Yeah. I mean, it's kind of crazy, but it definitely is like something that is discussed now. And I wonder if that's being pulled from people's real experiences or vice versa. People are
playing into the story, like campfire stories. Yeah.
Or like they see something because it's late at night and their brain's just not working properly and then they lean into what the story is.
Yeah, totally.
Mm-hmm. So we have another story here. It is titled, My Wife and I Saw Our 5-Year-Old Daughter, But Older. It's from r/Glitch in the Matrix also, and it's about a year old. Mm-hmm. It goes, a few months ago, in early January, my wife and I were in the kitchen getting lunch ready. Our 5-year-old daughter was in the living room watching TV. No one else was home. We live in a 2-bedroom apartment, and the layout allows you to see part of the corridor and the hallway outside the kitchen door from the kitchen. My wife was chopping food, and I was sitting behind her as we chatted. Suddenly, she turned halfway towards me, but froze, staring at the kitchen door. She didn't move, just stared, and then let out a massive gasp. I remember asking, what is it? And instinctively looked towards the door too. I caught a quick glimpse of what looked like a person turning the corner towards the living room. It happened so fast, but I was sure that I saw a person. Panic kicked in. My first thought was, someone broke in and our daughter is alone in the living room. I grabbed a knife and yelled at my wife to call the police. I rushed out and into the living room, but there was nothing, just my daughter sitting on the couch watching Bluey. She looked up at me, confused, completely unfazed. I tried to play it cool and asked if she'd seen anyone come in. She hadn't and didn't know what I was talking about. I searched the entire apartment, living room, bedrooms, bathroom, behind the curtains, in the closets, no sign of a break-in. All of the windows were closed. We live on the 3rd floor. There's no way anyone could have escaped through a window. The front door was locked and untouched. There were no sounds, no footsteps, nothing. This all happened within maybe 10 minutes. I went back to the kitchen and found my wife in tears. She was so shaken. She couldn't even speak. When she finally did calm down, she told me what she saw. She said she saw a tall woman dressed in a floral dress and high heels, walking across the corridor. The woman stopped when she realized she'd been seen, looked at my wife straight in her eyes, and my wife swears that the figure looked just like our daughter, but older. She said as soon as she gasped, the woman hurried and turned the corridor into the living room. That's the part I saw, a brief glimpse of somebody turning away and running down. If I hadn't seen it myself, I'd probably be asking my wife to see a therapist, but I know that something was there, and I did see it. We never figured out what it was, but it was, without question, the strangest moment of my life, and I know it happened.
Whoa. This reminds me so much of Sixth Sense.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, I don't know, just like people in the house and like the hallways and ghosts, I guess. Even though this was like another older version of this little girl.
Maybe it could be a ghost.
I don't know. That's where my mind went.
Yeah.
Sixth Sense. And that was scary. That's
so interesting. I always wonder if some of these are ghost stories, but I almost feel like sometimes mothers and parents have intuition.
You think like a version of her was there? Like the version of this little girl?
Maybe. One of the other stories that I talked about with, I think it was Leia, there was somebody who had done drugs and so one of their earliest memories as a child was somebody breaking into their house and coming into their bedroom, and they were in their crib and they just see this woman and man walk into the room and then get chased out by her parents. And when she's older, she one day does acid in a field or in a forest with her husband, and she's tripping out, and all of a sudden she sees this like red door or big door, and she decides to open it, and she ends up in a room, and she just thinks that she's tripping. But then she opens up the door of like a bedroom and sees herself, and then realizes that it's her.
It was her.
And then she runs to her parents' room to see them. And then her parents come out with a gun. Then she starts yelling, "Mommy, Daddy." And then what's even crazier is that now as an adult, she had ended up calling up her parents after this is all said and done. And she's asked about what happened that night. And until that moment that she had asked them about it, she didn't know that they had a gun. And they were like, we actually were so happy that she ran because she was yelling, "Mommy, Daddy." And we realized she was someone's daughter. And we didn't want to have to hurt her. And we're happy that they ran out of the room.
Whoa.
But like, that was like a weird time loop situation that in that sense, like in that case was drug induced, I guess.
I was going to say, like, do you think she visited them from that space and time?
I mean, a more rational explanation might be that in that moment, she might be filling in or experiencing what she's thought about from the other person's perspective. Like maybe it is just a hallucination.
Yeah.
But it's really cool that she didn't know, that her mother said when she followed up that the fact that she realized that it was somebody's daughter because she was yelling.
Story. Yeah.
And then she didn't know that there was a gun involved until she followed up.
That's interesting.
Yeah. The daughter being an adult and then seeing that she's been seen. I wonder if, you know, in that moment as an adult, if she actually saw her younger self. So she knew where she was, like she realized and was able to place herself and run away. We can move on to some comments now.
Okay.
So in a bunch of comments, some people do mention similar stories. We have one here where somebody says, "I once saw my 4th grade self. It stopped me dead in my tracks. I was completely speechless. It was definitely me. Same haircut, same 90s clothes, same skin tone, even the way she carried herself. That was almost 20 years ago, but I remember it like it happened 10 minutes ago." Someone replies to that asking, "Do you remember it from the other perspective, like from when you were that age?" And the response was, "I had an extremely traumatic childhood, so I don't have any memories," which is unfortunate. But just to give some context, somebody else writes, "When I was 5, I saw my mom's grandfather in the living room mirror. It scared the crap out of me for years. Much later in life, I finally told my mom about it. I explained that I didn't know who the man was, but that he was very distinct. He was always wearing farming overalls. She showed me a photo of her grandfather, and it was definitely him. She had been very close with him growing up, but I never met him. Maybe it should feel spookier, but honestly, I believe that he was looking out for me and that there are people looking out for us here."
I love the stories that are like, oh, they're just a nice presence. They're a nice ghost, or they're a nice
ghosts haunting us.
Yeah. Just a good, you know,
yeah,
grandma in the kitchen, just blessing your food. Making sure you eat right. You know, putting in an extra TLC.
Imagine those things. Something. I think that it would scare me even more if it was in a mirror, though, than if I saw it.
Yeah, mirrors are scary, though. Because, like, it would not red rum, but Bloody Mary.
Oh my God, don't get me. But that was not even thinking that. Wait, explain. But also, I see where you're going with this.
Well, mirrors are kind of just like freaky, you know?
Portals to.
Yeah, and I feel like we get like as kids, we get the like go into the bathroom, turn the lights off, and say Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary.
Have you ever done that?
I feel like, yeah.
I don't know if I have. I don't remember.
No?
Maybe I did and it was traumatic and now it's locked out of my memory.
Yeah. I don't think I would have done it alone. Like I feel like I remember some points where
I feel like it's a camp
I wanted
thing.
to like get out of the bathroom quicker.
Yeah.
Like, because it was dark and I was freaked out.
I would never. I mean, maybe as a kid you're dared to, but like I would never tempt a ghost to come and like I would just.
No,
I would be
Ouija,
so scared.
The Ouija board, like Ouija.
Yeah. Would you do it?
I loved Ouija as a
Really?
kid. Is it Ouija?
I don't know.
Or it's Ouija, right?
I have no idea because I've actually never used one and I'm scared. Okay. This is coming from somebody who likes to read tarot cards, so I'm probably wrong. I probably should be fine with Ouija boards, but there's something like darker, I feel like, surrounding the idea of the Ouija board, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I could see that.
Where it's like a lot of people try to communicate with ghosts that are haunting them. It's not usually used.
Yeah, it's creepy. Like it's a little.
I feel like it's not usually people who are like, oh my God, the happy ghost is looking out for me in the house. It's usually people being like, I'm being haunted by something that is whispering to me like scary things in the vents. And I want a Ouija board because I wanted to ask it what it wants from me.
That's so funny. That's funny because I feel like the whole vibe of the Ouija is kind of spooky and eerie because you're like talking to ghosts. But I feel like I always felt that it was like very neutral. Like I always felt that what you were getting was like neutral. It was just like some John kind of like telling you something, but just the creepiness is that you're trying to talk to an entity.
Did you do it alone or did you do it with people? Do you have any like crazy stories of when you did it?
I mean, maybe. I mean, not like, you know.
I mean,
you make it a crazy story, you know? I feel like, they said that.
Were you moving it? Like were you subtly moving it?
I feel like, you know, like
everyone thinks that someone's moving it.
Exactly. Exactly. Like, Jimmy, no, are you moving it? You're moving it. You know?
And they're like, yeah, no, you're moving it, right?
Yeah. Someone's moving it.
I feel like,
so it's like,
what if no one's moving it? Just saying.
I mean, that would be really cool.
So when you did do it, what were you asking? Do you remember? Or like, what kind of an answer? Like, did you get a spooky answer? Or was it something that just...
I don't know. Like, tell me... I don't think that we asked tell me when I'm going to die. That's a really intense one as a kid. That I don't know why that just popped into my head.
That would be like one of those... I don't know. That's a crazy one to have.
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't know. I feel like maybe like... what's my birthday, or like testing it, or a lot of like yes or no's. Okay. It's like, I think there's like a yes or no at the bottom
your friend
of the board.
I feel like asking about your birthday is a good one because, but mind you, why would the ghost know what your birthday is?
What's that?
Like maybe your friend wouldn't know that, so they couldn't answer it properly. So you'd know like you could ask it a question that it would potentially know. That would be a good
thing. That would be a good thing to do to test it.
Yeah. It's like you guys go into separate rooms and you're like, ghost,
I think everyone's too excited.
If you're like, ghost, before we get started, we're each going to write down our birthday and hide it.
Yes.
And if you answer it correctly, then we know that this is a ghost and not us pushing the Ouija board.
Yes, exactly.
I feel like there must be people who do that, right?
Contrary evidence. Probably. But
I can't.
Then they might be able to sell the Ouija board as well.
Sorry?
Then they might not be able to sell the Ouija board as well.
To sell it?
Yeah, like
no, I wonder if there are stories
do that. Of people
like testing it before they use it and like having it work out.
Yeah. Well, that would be cool.
I'm gonna have to look into that for the next episode.
Yeah.
Another commenter writes, "This happened to my mom when I was about 3 years old. She saw me walking past the dining room wearing Marine Corps dress blue uniform. She said I looked like I was in my 20s. It terrified her because she thought it was a sign that she wouldn't live to see me grow up. But 20 years later, I did join the Marine Corps in my early 20s. It's been 30 years since the vision, and my mom is still alive and well."
I wonder if she seeded that.
Maybe.
For him.
Yeah, maybe. It's totally possible. even if it's not, I like the wanted idea. To include a comment where somebody counters that belief, because I'm sure that's not the first person to see something like that and be like, it's a bad omen.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to hear that it was not in this case. So it's not necessarily.
Because it was just him in a Marine Corps uniform, not more than that, right? Like he wasn't injured or like. Yeah. Yeah.
Like Marine Corps, but not just Marine Corps. Like dress blue uniform. So I had looked that up. Right. That means like a fancier version of your uniform, not like the standard one.
Huh.
But Marine Corps is also more difficult to get into, right? Like even if you're enjoying the Army.
I think so.
I don't know much about how the Army works. Is it like the Army and then Marine Corps is a specialization?
I feel like the Marine Corps is smaller. I mean, I guess it's part of the Army, but I guess it's the Marine
extra
version.
Training, right?
Yeah, you got to cut this out.
No, it's okay. This is good. This is good. There are going to be people like us who don't know the answer to this. I feel like...
Well, there's a Navy, right? And is the Navy and the Marine Corps
the
same
Navy and the Marines the same thing? No, I think the Navy and the Marines are two separate things.
Are they? Really?
They must be.
Oh, maybe Navy is. I'm gonna.
Are the Marines and the Navy the same thing? No. They are not the same thing.
What?
But they are related and often work together.
Okay.
Yeah, the Navy's primary purpose is to maintain and protect U.S. interests at sea, whereas Marine Corps specialize in amphibious operations and rapid reaction combat roles. So no, very different. Amphibious, I think is the word.
What's that? I'm thinking of like amphibians.
No. Wait, maybe. Hold on. I don't want to be wrong. We're gonna make sure. You are actually right. It is connected to. It's related to things that are suited for both land and sea. You are right. I was wrong. So the Marine Corps will work with the Navy, I guess, but also with the Army. Like they, I guess, are specialized.
I guess in anything marine related.
I think we got so off topic.
But protected?
I don't know, but I think it's harder to become. I think it's harder to get into the Marine Corps than it is other areas of the Army because they are smaller and specialized.
Yeah,
so
that
for her to see that, that uniform specifically. It's not just did he sign up for it. I don't think that it's easy to get into even if you did.
Right. And then he ended up in the Marine Corps with that uniform.
Mm-hmm. Cool stuff.
Yeah. She knew.
Okay. The next story is seen from a bit of a different perspective, which is written from the perspective of being the background character witnessing somebody else post glitch. So somebody else who just experienced something and you kind of see the fallout of that.
Yeah.
But you're just looking at them dumbfounded in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
So this story is 5 years old, also from Glitch in the Matrix. I think I just became the background character in somebody else's Glitch in the Matrix. This happened just last night at the start of my graveyard shift. I work in a gas station chain just outside of a big stretch of the suburbs. We're not middle of nowhere, but we aren't surrounded by other businesses either. Still, we almost never go hours without customers. It was just after midnight. With everything going on in the US, not much stays open at night except gas stations and bars, so things were slow. I was the only one working when a car pulled up to one of the pumps out front. It was a pretty standard white 4-door, looked fairly new, probably something upper middle class. A woman got out. She looked completely dazed. Honestly, she looked like she had just seen a ghost. She walked up, froze at the door for a second with this 1,000-yard stare, then finally came inside. She didn't shop or look for anything. She just stood there lost. Since bars are open, I thought maybe she was just a little drunk or had a rough night. So I gave her the usual welcome and asked if she needed any help finding anything. That's when she finally noticed me and asked the weirdest question I'd ever been asked at work. "You can see me, right?" I said, "Yeah." She immediately broke down crying in the middle of my store. I came around the corner to check on her, cell phone out in case I needed to call the cops or call somebody for her. I got her to sit down on a pallet of soda and grabbed her a bottle of water. After she caught her breath, she told me, "I thought I had died." At this point, I was still thinking maybe she was on something, but she just looked like your average local suburban mom, totally normal for our area. She asked if she could call her husband to pick her up and waited with me. She called him on her own phone, didn't say much, just told him where she was and asked him to come get her. He said he would be there as soon as possible. While we waited, with no other customers around, she started to explain. I was driving home from dinner with coworkers, and as I was going through a nearby intersection, a truck ran a red light and hit me. Her car, by the way, was still sitting at the pump without a scratch on it. She went on. She remembered her car being pushed into a pole, going airborne, and then nothing. She said she blacked out, woke up in an ambulance for a split second, passed out again, and then suddenly woke up behind the wheel at an intersection waiting for the light to change. Her car was fine. She was fine. It freaked her out so much, she just drove to the first open place that she saw, which was the gas station, so she could get out of the car and try to process what had just happened. Eventually, her husband showed up. He asked me if I knew what happened. Even though she'd told me everything, I just shrugged. I had no idea what I had just witnessed. She reluctantly got into the passenger seat and they drove off. That was hours ago, and I spent the rest of my shift trying to wrap my head around what the hell I just saw.
I feel like it's a very freaky thing to not know if you are alive or dead. To have that happen and then be like, am I real?
Mm-hmm. Am I in a dream?
Yeah.
What? Did I just go from one dream to another? Have you ever had where you like wake up in a dream and then you wake up in another dream and then you realize that you're still, well, no, because, yeah.
Yeah. I've had that. It's like a double layer of dream. Yeah, I've had that before. Yeah, exactly.
It's interesting that was not her first go-to is when I'm in a dream, it's I died.
Yeah. And did she?
This sort of reminds me of, I don't know if you saw, did you watch the OA?
No.
So there's, spoiler alert, if you didn't watch the OA and you don't want to hear this, fast forward a little bit. Mm-hmm. But there's this scene where she does die and she, the whole show is basically about different parallel universes and different layers of reality on top of each other. But there's one scene where she dies and she kind of wakes up in an ambulance and then she wakes up in a different reality. And, it's so interesting to hear stories like that.
Sounded like it was pretty detailed.
And felt real.
Yeah, real enough for her to shake and cry in a corner and didn't seem like she was on drugs.
Have you ever had anything happen where you sort of something happened and you're like, whoa, I don't know why, I just felt like that was really dangerous and I'm surprised that I'm okay?
I mean, I've had some things where I'm like, I shouldn't have done that because that was a dangerous thing to do. But I don't know if it's
not. I didn't we don't have to. We don't have to get into maybe bad choices. We can avoid those.
Okay.
No. I mean more I had a friend I was on the phone with recently, and all of a sudden she became super jarred. And I asked her what happened. I thought she was in a car accident. She's like, I can't explain to you what just happened, but all of a sudden the light was yellow and somebody was running another. She's like, and I feel like I'm okay. Nothing happened, but I feel like something that was really scary because I feel like almost something happened, but it felt like. It didn't feel like it happened, but there was a really jarring holy shit, I just saw my life flash before my eyes, but I didn't because nothing happened, but that was a close call.
Yes. Okay, well, something came to mind. Mm-hmm. It was driving with my family, and we used to go to Mont-Tremblant, so we'd all get in the car, and then we started driving, and the back of the truck opens of this truck that's in front of us. What? And the full back just... it opened, I think. And, those wheelie things for moving, you know what those are called? I don't know what those are called, but it literally just fell out of the truck, bounced on the street. And I mean, it was right in front of us and it bounced away. Yeah.
But what was your experience in that? No, that definitely counts. And also it reminds me of several stories that I've written,
it was just a close call. It just felt like a close call. It was
new fear unlocked because
driving behind.
Do you know I've been?
Yeah, I was scared about that for a while. I was conscious of that afterwards for a while.
I've always been afraid of things falling out of trucks because of that one scene in Final Destination.
Oh yeah,
with the logs that are tied down. All of a sudden something breaks because somebody didn't fasten it, and then the logs just come through.
I think about that too.
And then I looked it up at one point, and apparently, I think it's called highway debris, when things fall off of cars because people aren't smart enough in how they secure things. Or aren't mindful enough when they secure things. That's actually a big reason for big car accidents and that is such a crazy story.
Yeah, it was pretty scary. It was like right when we started the drive, and it was like boom, bam, right in front of us, and then like woof, like.
Did you guys like pull over? What'd you do?
I don't know. I think we kept driving.
That is so jarring.
Yeah.
And I feel like in the moment, it probably happened so quickly.
Yeah.
My God.
Yeah, it was
that
crazy.
is a big one.
I was thinking about it. Yeah. Well, that's what it reminded me of. You jogged my memory.
That is.
Now me thinking about that. I hadn't thought about that in a long time.
It is crazy. We have a commenter here who writes, my friend had a similar experience, one that honestly left us both shaken. She told me she was driving her own car down the road when suddenly it was like she was in the passenger seat of my Jeep with me driving. In that moment, a white van ran a red light and hit us, and we flipped 6 times. And then just like that, she was back in her own car, driving as if nothing had happened.
This is like a vision that she had. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Okay, got it now.
She was so rattled that she pulled over and called me to make sure I was okay. While she was sitting there on the phone, a white van actually rolled through the intersection and hit another car. It always made me wonder if I'm even supposed to be here right now. Creepy.
Yeah, that is creepy.
Yeah.
It's weird when those things happen.
Totally.
You know, you hear like your ears are itching. Do you know that?
Ears are ringing, or
like your ears must have been itching.
Ringing.
I don't know, or ringing. That could be a translation difference.
Yeah, totally. But this is even more. She like saw a white car and she like calls her friend and says, all of a sudden I was in your car driving. And a white car hit us and we died, basically.
Yeah.
And they're jarred, they're pulled over, they're talking about it. And then
yeah.
That is Final
wild.
Destination.
Yeah. Well, she got the call, Aurora. Maybe she helped her too.
Actually, I never put the two together, but yeah, that is true. Another commenter writes, it's possible that she had some kind of extreme vision, a glimpse of a possible outcome, maybe even a warning that something was about to happen. If she hadn't been stopped in her tracks by it, she might not have been here today. The tricky part is she had no way of knowing if what she just experienced was in her mind, and it clearly left her shaken. Maybe she has some kind of psychic sense that she's not aware of. But more likely, there was a truck that did run the red light, but because she was so disoriented when she snapped back, she didn't actually notice it, or maybe she just happened to cross at a different moment. Either that, or she just discovered she has time rewind powers, or, maybe she just really was out of it that day. Take your pick. So I think here what they're basically saying is maybe there was a truck that ran the red light. Maybe she did see the lights, but maybe it just missed her. And then she just blacked out and got through it. And there's almost like a mental block from the trauma that she saw what could have happened, but she survived it and the truck just continued on. But she saw the possibility of her dying, I think is what they're saying here.
I see. And then she called her friend after that.
No, this is backtracking. This is a comment on the original post. It's applicable to both.
Okay,
but the original post, the one
remind me.
Being the background character in somebody's glitch. Oh. So these are all comments underneath that one.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
They're saying maybe you're good. Yeah.
Okay, I got it. Okay, got you. I'm following. I'm in the sub thread. I can visualize it. I know how it works.
It is kind of interesting because with these stories, people often give their mini stories underneath, and sometimes they're even more interesting.
Yeah.
So for me, I personally love going through the comment section of Reddit stories, and sometimes when people don't go into those enough, I get aggravated. I'm like, I have to go look up this post because I have to see what like the Reddit hive, what their take is on this, and like whether people are. Because, there is some level of the initial post might be somebody kind of having fun with it.
Yeah.
Not always, but then you see like 30 posts of people underneath being like, this thing happened to me or this similar thing. And I'm like, okay, like I don't think all of the people in the comments are making it up too. That would be kind of crazy.
Yeah. The take is better than the original post sometimes.
Or it supports the idea that the original poster wasn't necessarily just making up a narration or like who had similar experiences. And, okay, so we're back from our little snack break / bathroom break.
Perfect.
Now I'm more in the image because we have now realized that the footage, I was cut out of a lot of it, but here we are.
Some visual technical difficulties, but we're good now.
It's good. It's good.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to continue on with another similar story to one that we read before. This one is with a couple that meet their son before they have their son. The next story is called Meeting Our Son Before He Was Born. It's 5 years old and also from the subreddit Glitch in the Matrix. This happened about 7 or 8 years ago. My husband and I were lying in bed one night just watching TV when out of the corner of my eye, I saw a child standing in our bedroom doorway. Thinking it was our only child at the time, I nudged my husband and whispered, "Hey, shh, I think Connor is going to try to scare us." He turned to look and we watched as the child walked right into our room. I can't explain it because it was one of those moments that just felt different. We both went quiet and soon realized that this was not our son. He toddled in, head slightly tilted back, curls bouncing, his diaper making that familiar squishy squish noise, and walked right up to the end of our bed. We saw his head dip down like he was crouching, but when we got up to check, he was gone. I turned to my husband and said, "Did we just see a ghost?" Then almost like a joke, we added, "Well, if we have another baby and he's got curls, then we'll know that he visited us before he was born." We both laughed since we weren't even trying to have another baby at the time. Just to be sure, we checked on our son. He was sound asleep. A few months later, surprise, I found out I was pregnant. Fast forward and our new baby Liam turns 2. He toddles into our room, head tilted back, curls bouncing, and in that moment, it hits me like a bucket of ice water. This was the baby who visited us that night. No doubt about it in my mind. But there's more. Whenever Liam stays anywhere overnight, like with my parents, he always comes and visits me in my dreams. For example, once I was napping and he appeared and just smiled at me. He was wearing a little red shirt and his hair was short, even though he'd left home with it long. The next day I went to pick up the kids. There he was, freshly short hair, wearing the red shirt. I asked my mom, "Did he wear that yesterday?" She said, "Oh yeah, but he insisted on wearing it again today." So I looked at Liam and asked, "Did you come to visit Mama yesterday in her dreams?" He was 4 years old, looked up at me with his big blue eyes, completely serious, and just nodded. So that's my glitch in the Matrix story. I guess our son is an astral traveler and even stopped by to see us before he was born. I know there's curls anywhere. The fact that my husband witnessed it as well makes it even weirder. But honestly, it's just fascinating.
Oh, he sounds cute, this kid.
Yeah.
That's sweet.
Yeah. But it's one of those, the fact that he now allegedly is able to visit in dreams when he sleeps somewhere else, when he's dreaming or not dreaming, the fact that he can
still do that.
Kind of crazy.
Yeah.
I'm insane.
It's nice.
Yeah.
It's sweet of him.
And it also kind of leads you to believe, well, we'll get into some of the comments because I don't want to ruin the comments.
Okay.
We have one commenter here writes, "My 6-year-old daughter, the youngest of 3 girls, has always said, ever since she could talk, that she waited to be born so she could pick my wife and me as her parents. The way she says it is always so serious and matter of fact. No childlike coyness, no playful smile, just pure certainty. It's always made me feel like she really did make a conscious choice to join our family." Someone responds to that comment saying, "I went with my friend and her daughter to a Buddhist temple. While we were there, the daughter turned to us and said, 'I've been here before, when I was in mommy's tummy.' The last time my friend had visited that temple was when she was pregnant with her daughter. After having experienced that, I truly believe that your daughter did choose you."
See, that's cool because she was already here. So she could have maybe like picked up on something.
Yeah. Somehow able to remember a memory that her mom had from when she was in her mom's belly.
Tummy. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is such a nice thing to think about.
Yeah. That's sweet.
Mm-hmm. Another person writes, this apparently happened to my mother after she lost my brother to stillbirth. My parents tried to have a baby as soon as possible after losing him, and my mom was getting really frustrated. At one point, she thought she might be pregnant, so she took a test, but it came out negative. She was so mad and hurt that she tossed it in the trash and went to go cry in front of a fireplace. What made it even harder was that she had been having phantom kicks in her stomach ever since she lost the baby. They were happening again as she lay there falling asleep. In her dream, a girl who looked like my sister but wasn't came up to her at the fireplace and asked, "Is it okay if I'm not a boy?" She said, "Of course it's okay," and then woke up. She went to go check the test in the trash, and there it was, a very, very faint second line.
Oh, wow.
And that's a story about how I allegedly visited my mom before I was born.
Oh. Imagine she didn't have that situation happen.
Yeah.
And she would have just left that test in the garbage.
But also imagine, what are so many synchronicities. Like she didn't see the line. She falls asleep, has a dream. Mm-hmm. The dream happens to be a baby coming to her who looks like the daughter and, asks if it's okay if she has a girl instead of a boy.
Yeah.
And this is one of those things where, you were saying before, dreams kind of having this weird portal to something non-physical.
Yeah, totally.
It's funny when you hear these stories, it's almost like people are like, okay, like, sure. And then you kind of hear more and more people tell similar stories. And you're like, I don't know. Like with, before the internet, I feel like, when somebody had a situation like that, nobody really talked about it, but also it wasn't like you could go on the internet and find it. So yeah, the internet kind of works in these, the yin and the yang of it. People who have really bad thoughts can find communities like that who have similar thoughts, but also people have really interesting experiences who otherwise would have just been like, oh, it's just a random thing. All of a sudden they're like, oh, wait, hold on. Maybe this is something. I don't know what it is, but something.
Yeah. And I didn't even think it was weird. Like it seemed like that.
Like destiny in a sense. Yeah. We have another commenter here who talks about seeing their child before they were born. They write, I've been dreaming of my second child since I was about 11 or 12. I dream about holding a blonde baby with striking blue eyes and a wide nose. Sometimes I'd see her as a toddler with pigtails, or as an older child with skinny legs, and even as a young woman, almost painfully beautiful. What made it odd is that I'm dark Irish. My skin is olive, my eyes are orange-brown, and my hair is brown-black. The odds of me having a blonde, blue-eyed baby seemed almost impossible. So imagine my surprise the first time I saw my second-born, with crystal blue eyes, a wide nose, and blonde hair plastered all over her head. She's almost 4 now, and sometimes I just stop and stare at her. It really feels like she waited a while to get here. I just hope I'm doing right by her. Whoever she is, she's truly the child of my dreams.
Did she say she has orange-brown eyes?
Yeah, I guess maybe like so have you ever seen, I think I have seen people with like brown eyes with like yellowish, goldish specks.
Okay.
Not
something
orange,
lighter,
but
like a little bit golder.
But not leaning towards the hazel of it. Like leaning towards like a lighter, almost like, I don't want to say cattier, but like glowier eye in a sense.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Like picking up on like the specks of light. Mm-hmm. So somebody else responded to that comment asking how they knew it was going to be their second child and not their first. Mm-hmm. So they had responded saying that they didn't. Their firstborn wasn't blonde. She was actually born with a genetic disorder and lived a very short life. But my husband and I love being parents, so we decided to try again a few years later. So it's not that she knew it was going to be her secondborn. It's that it wasn't her firstborn. Yeah. So that when it came to fruition. Another commenter has a different take on these encounters. They write, I don't think this is a glitch in the matrix. To me, this is something much more profound. Mothers are connected to the lives that they carry in ways we cannot fully understand. Sometimes children continue to connect with those they love across different planes of existence. In our family, when children visit or reach out when they're not physically present, we call those walkabouts. Sometimes we'll feel them without seeing them, enter a living room or kitchen when they're supposed to be asleep. When it happens, we just tell them, we love you, but you need to rest. Go back to bed and we'll see you in the morning. Your sun is still very open and you are blessed. Enjoy this connection while it lasts. I hope it continues well into adulthood. I guess what they're saying is more so on a spirit, instead of it being them visiting. I think that they're saying the same thing, to be honest. It's the same idea. It's the idea, the first comment almost pulls it all together where she talks about how the child visited her
before.
But then also now astral projects.
And it's still there.
Imagine that happens so often that you call them something and you're like, go back to bed, put your soul back in your body. It's not time for this.
Yeah.
Oh.
And they're still, like, they're alive now, right? Is what they're saying.
Yeah,
like, their kid is, like, in their bed sleeping, but there's, like, still this.
Astral projection.
Right. Early kid just wandering around the living room. He could be going other places.
Imagine, like when you put kids to bed and they're like, I don't want to go to bed, and like crying and like you have to like close all the lights. Imagine
like,
if you had a kid that could astral project. They're like, joke's on you. I'm coming to visit you.
Yeah. I'm going to keep playing that game. I'm going to keep playing, reading that book in the living room.
It, there are some horror. I feel like a lot of horror movies are based off of the concept of your body being taken over. Oh, that just reminded me. Last night not last night. Was it last night? When I was going to bed, I had a really weird, before I fell asleep, like one of those lucid dreams I was telling you about, but it wasn't. It was sometimes when I meditate, I see things, and sometimes when I'm kind of in between, like in sleep paralysis almost. But because I have aphantasia, I can't really see behind my eyes. But sometimes I see shadows of like figures with lights behind, and like I know. So last night when I was trying to go to bed, something made eye contact with me, like in the blackness, and I was like, no, go away. Like ran towards me and I had a heart attack. Don't remember where I was going with that, but here we are. Do you want to hear? So the next one we have is from Glitch in the Matrix. It's 4 years old and the OP titled it, I made up a character only to find out that she really existed. They write, I'm an amateur horror writer. In one of my stories, I create a character named Alexandra Waterbury, a ballerina with an abusive ex-boyfriend who shares her explicit photos without her knowledge or consent. A few months after I wrote the story, I was scrolling through my newsfeed and came across a news article that stopped me in my tracks. It was about a ballerina suing her boyfriend and his company for sharing explicit photos and videos of her without her consent. Her name? Alexandra Waterbury.
Weird.
I'd never heard of her before writing the character. I chose Alexandra because my favorite actress is Alexandra Daddario, and I picked Waterbury because it's the name of the town in a TV series slasher, which I used to watch. The coincidence is honestly mind-boggling. I can't explain it. It's one of the strangest things I've ever experienced.
That would be very weird.
Yeah.
If I wrote something in a character, made up a character, and then it just came up.
You coded the simulation?
Yeah.
I feel like I need her to write me a boyfriend. Can I contact her?
You can write yourself a boyfriend.
That's what they say. There are stories of people who make lists and then
Yeah.
or Sims characters, which we touched on in different episodes. Apparently, this is a phenomenon that isn't as niche as one would think. A lot of commenters reference different times in pop culture that people had similar experiences. So one commenter writes, this reminds me of what happened with Edgar Allan Poe. He wrote a story about a ship that went out to sea, ended up in distress, and the crew resorted to cannibalism, eating the cabin boy who had a very specific name. Years later, an almost identical incident actually happened, with the real cabin boy sharing that same name as in Poe's story.
Weird stuff.
Another commenter writes that it happened to Nietzsche as well. Another commenter suggests that there's a more logical explanation. They suggest that it could be this thing called cryptomnesia.
That's the first crypto something that I've heard.
That's not related to that's not related to cryptocurrencies.
Yes, exactly.
Very true. It's so I looked up the Wikipedia definition. It says that it occurs when a forgotten memory returns without it being recognized by the subject as a memory. And they believe it to be something new or original. It's a memory bias where a person may falsely recall generating a thought, an idea, a name, or a joke. They are not deliberately engaging in plagiarism, but are experiencing a memory as if it were a new inspiration.
Interesting.
So OP, the original poster, responds to that and says, I couldn't have read it anywhere. The lawsuit was filed in 2018, and I wrote my story in December of 2017.
And it couldn't have been anywhere else, I guess.
I mean, the story happened afterwards.
Yeah.
Another user adds, this happened to me back in middle school. My friend and I made up a guy named Ethan Gray to trick another girl. We were being pretty petty. Sounds like you're being a bully. We gave him a whole backstory. He played basketball. He was moving to the town from another small town. We even described what he looked like. The next year, I moved away. And insanely enough, a guy named Ethan Gray actually moved to town. He was a grade ahead of us, played basketball, looked exactly like the guy we'd originally described, and came from another small town. He even ended up dating the girl we originally tricked with our character. I'm pretty sure he still lives in that town all these years later.
I hope they got married.
Me too. I talk about they manifested her something good in her life as good karma based on the bad shit that they were doing.
Yeah.
Somebody else writes, have you ever wondered if these stories are actually examples of tapping into the universal consciousness? Maybe these strange similarities are less about creative storytelling and more about glimpses of the future. Think about how much science fiction has become science fact, or how stories written by popular authors often have uncanny parallel to real-life events.
Should we make up a character right now?
Yeah. Well, they write that they really hope, but that's not always the case because they go on to tell, something that they wrote about. And they're like, if this comes to fruition, that would suck.
Oh, no. Just good characters.
We should write a story.
Yeah.
Write a future. Maybe if there are multiple parallel realities, when you write that story, you end up in that reality.
Yeah.
Or closer to, because an infinite amount of them exist. So the chances of one with something similar.
Also, Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Yes, so I never fully watched that movie, which is shocking, but I'm really bad at paying attention to long movies.
There's a lot that's going on. I suggest watching it
in
on a
stages.
couch, in bed, with all of your comfort.
Yeah, my ADD cannot.
There's a lot of places to be.
I feel like when I was watching it was just so many things from left field happening. I was like, I can't. Oh wait, because I can't.
There's a lot to
could not follow the storyline.
There's a lot. There was a lot happening. The favorite part of the movie is when they took a break in the movie. And they did.
That was your favorite part of the movie?
Yeah.
So it's not a very good movie, is it?
It's a really good movie. Mind-bending and beautiful.
I wonder when people do come up with things like that, if they did tap into something. They created the narration, but it's based off of something that's... Because how do you come up with that unless...
Yeah. No, totally. They would have had to be doing research on this topic.
So this is our last story.
Okay.
It's 3 years old. It's from Glitch in the Matrix. It's called A Former Coworker is Back from the Dead. It goes, this is one of my biggest personal glitches that I've ever experienced. I work in the admitting department of my local hospital, and sometimes I help the business office with billing. One of my tasks is to keep track of obituaries. When someone's obituary appears in the paper, I check if they still owe the hospital money. If they do, I clip the obituary, fill out a form, and track how their insurance pays out. A few years ago, I've worked here for almost 20 years. One of my coworkers from the dietary department retired and passed away shortly after. I know because I processed her obituary. The daughter is also friends with my cousin, and I remember the day after the funeral, she was over at my cousin's house. I also recall there being a big wake for her mother. So today, I'm working in the ER registration when the daughter comes in and says her mom is in the ER. I just freeze. Wait, what? I didn't say anything for a moment, so my office mate stepped in to help and looked up the patient. Sure enough, it was the same woman who died years ago. My office mate lets the daughter back into the ER, and I look but can't find the obituary that I'd filled out. So that's where the initial story ends, but we do have some edits. So our first edit says, I checked with my cousin, and he's as weirded out as I am. The daughter doesn't remember anything about a wake or their mother's funeral, but she says that she's been hearing stories like this from people all week. People remembering her mom dying, even recalling funeral details, but to her mom's alive and well. Plus, her mom is there in the room, so it's definitely freaky. Then we have another edit. Spoke to my cousin again. Coworker's daughter says that her dad did die, not her mother, but everyone who bumps into her remembers it differently. They're asking about her dad, why he's not answering his phone, how he's doing. To her father has been gone for many years. Edit 3. People have asked if I have ever had a close call, if there was a moment I might have slipped into another universe. There actually was. About 2 years ago, I was getting my evening medication ready. I was tired and accidentally took an entire bottle of glipizide, a medication that lowers your blood sugar. I realized my mistake right as I laid down for a nap, feeling extremely exhausted. Looking back, it's possible I fell asleep in that universe and woke up here. In more edits, they explain what happened and how they ended up taking the medication because they explain that they were not doing it intentionally and how it happened. But we won't go into it too much here. The link will be in the description of the video. But imagine.
I mean, it would be nuts if people came up to me and thought some of those things.
Yeah. I mean, I can't imagine what it's like for the daughter who is like, my father passed away years ago. My mom's alive and well. And people are being like, how is your mom here? Because that's kind of the first edit. And then the second one is people asking where her dad is.
That's really bizarre.
And, if there's several people, was there an incident that happened in the community? Like this.
Yeah. And then is it just that guy who went to sleep?
But then why are all these other people going up to the daughter?
Well, right.
Because it has to be,
I guess, yeah.
So ChatGPT, and love ChatGPT, but I was asking it about different theories, and one theory that I hadn't heard of before, which I guess is an offshoot of many worlds theory and simulation theory, is I think it's called the anthropic shadow hypothesis or something along those lines, and it's the idea that this is how I understood my very brief research into it. This idea that quantum immortality also happens to humanity as a whole. So there are times when humanity is actually wiped out, but everyone who's wiped out merge with the timeline where they survive. So on a wider level, there's actually more extermination events than we realize. But because those people who die, we anyways just jump like with quantum immortality to a different timeline as a whole. That we don't realize how much more prevalent extinction events are. And then there's this idea of like a more localized form where when a group of people pass in a community or something, they all jump.
I wonder if there's a gateway or like a portal or like a thing that happens to all of them.
Well, I wonder if it's just if it's what we described earlier, which we won't get into because it's going to be in the next episode, but the story about how somebody described reincarnation. I wonder if that could happen to a group of people all at once. So like if that experience, if everyone dies or passes in one area, if they might all jump together,
like
some of them.
Like a catastrophe or something like that. Like something.
Exactly. Like if 60 people, God forbid, or, there was, I think there was actually I saw on the news today, an attack at I think a parade or something, and a bunch of people did pass. I wonder if all those people potentially jump, or when they jump, they could jump together to, at least some of them might jump together to a similar timeline. And that might be where the discrepancy is. But that's just a theory, or applying a theory in a more localized way.
Right.
But that would maybe explain this. If there was like a tragedy and like a bunch of people jumped together to a dissimilar timeline that isn't the same one. Or,
It's interesting. It's interesting that there's some other people that also remember the same thing.
Yeah.
This poor girl.
Yeah. I would be so freaked out. So freaked out.
Be very freaked out.
I could not imagine. So we have a couple of comments here. One commenter writes, is it possible that you misread Mrs. for Mr. on the paperwork years ago, and it was actually her husband who died? Maybe that's why she retired, to care for her sick, dying husband. And so the original poster didn't respond, but another commenter writes that...
I wonder if you could find this. Like, I wonder you could search up the obituaries and...
Probably. Yeah. I mean, people try to stay anonymous sometimes, but sometimes people do post stories or pictures. So, I mean, I'll look... Maybe I'll look and see if this person posts any evidence, but...
Yeah.
P doesn't respond here, but the commenter notes that the paperwork wasn't the only evidence, that the cousin was also confused, that she remembers a wake, that there were people who specifically went to the wake, that other people recall similar things.
It's a weird thing to make up.
Yeah, it is.
It's like a wake.
Yeah. I mean, maybe she also confused the wake, but it's also weird that so many other people are approaching the daughter with a similar recollection.
Yeah.
Another person writes, maybe they lied about her death years ago to collect insurance money.
Oh.
Another commenter writes, if that were the case, they'd be in hiding. That would be a pretty major case of insurance fraud.
Maybe they're back for round 2. It's so successful.
Mm-hmm. Another commenter writes that they just started watching the Lazarus Project on HBO, the Lazarus Project. Mm-hmm. In the show, if something happens that would end the world, a team rewinds time and does a do-over. In the show, people who are born or died during that rewound period are suddenly no longer born or no longer dead. It would explain what you're seeing here, except in the show, people don't remember the different timelines.
This reminds me of The Body Problem.
Does it?
A little.
Tell me more.
Like a few different civilizations and they die each time in the whole game.
Yeah.
I guess it's a game in the end, but the whole simulation or the whole game is that they want to survive each communal death.
I feel like when I watched
it's cool. I think it also has a lot of metaphysical.
Oh, it does.
Yeah.
It talks about.
The book is better.
You read the book?
Mm-hmm. Just the first one of the 3, but it was
interesting. I don't fully understand the quantum entanglement aspect of the aliens talking to them through quantum entanglement. That was something I wasn't sure about. Yeah, but there is something.
What was that?
There's something that they do in there that comes up in Reddit threads actually. That's again prep for another episode, so I won't get into it here because I want to be too repetitive. But certain things that they do in that show, people describe from years ago. So maybe they pulled it from here, or maybe they watched. I don't know.
Maybe they used it as research.
Maybe it was one of those things where they pulled, or maybe they pulled from the collective consciousness, like we just talked about, the other stories with Edgar Allan Poe.
Oh yeah.
And the ballerina story. No, I remember. So if I remember correctly, there's timelines they don't survive, so they quantum jump, and now they're looking for a world, and because they send...
Yeah. What is it? It's this hard math problem, which is the 3-body problem, and it's if you have
3
factors,
suns,
yeah.
Or is it 3 planets, or the way that it works is that they'll eventually cause a natural disaster?
Yeah, it's something like that. It's they can't be in harmony, or it's so hard to compute.
Yeah.
This problem in order to figure out. I just remember at the end of it, I guess it's spoiler alert, that it's at the end of it, they look at us like we look at grasshoppers. Mm-hmm. They're so far ahead in intelligence and math and technology that we're just a puny little civilization that, I don't know.
I mean, if there are aliens out there ain't no way that we are the smartest ones. I just am not that.
Yeah, I don't think so. Because we would, I think, be able to find them.
I mean, if things are real, if the physical world is real, because of course there's a second question of if it's a simulation and if things are just projected, nothing's real. I don't know if it matters because then aliens could technically be interested, people experiencing a different simulation. But if I were to go with this world being real, and going down that, then I'm not self-centered enough to think that that it's what are once you start going down that rabbit hole and you look at the galaxy and how many planets are in a galaxy and how many galaxies there are, and it's just
I think
that we're less than 1 grain of sand on a beach.
Yeah.
To think that we are the only grain of sand with life forms and that we are the most advanced, it's just that is such a level of self-centeredness that I just don't possess.
Yeah. I think I read somewhere that it's likely. There's that one planet that's the closest. Do you remember what it's called?
I don't know.
Gilad?
But we haven't even explored a small portion of what the universe is.
Yeah.
Or what the galaxy or any of it. So it's if all of this is physically real, and the physical world is matter is real, then how could we be the only ones that to me, it's just the likelihood of that being true versus in a beach with millions and millions of grains of sand or whatever, the chances of one piece of sand being the only piece of sand that's got some diamond specks in it is rare.
Yeah.
It's sort of okay, but then also there's the idea of nothing being real, and then that doesn't. Then aliens aren't real.
I read a good book about this also, actually.
Yeah.
I'll send it to you.
Oh my God, yes.
It's these lectures, actually. It's the whole book is some...
Hey, so you read about all this stuff.
It's coming back to my memory, but...
Do you have a memory where, unless it's triggered, you don't really remember?
Yeah.
So I'm the same way. I call it dusting things off the corner of my brain.
Yeah, you're jogging my memory.
Yeah. But like all of a sudden I'll like remember. It's
randomly. I was never thinking of that book. But then we talked about the planets. I'm like, oh, I read exactly about this. I wish I knew the author's name.
You'll look it up. Do you have it at your house?
I'll find it. That's my brother's book. I borrowed it. It's good.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll get into, were we in the comments there? I think we're almost done. A bunch of the comments basically wrote CERN. Just CERN. Have you heard about this whole...
What is CERN?
So I didn't fully go into it. I guess at one point I'm going to have to look into this conspiracy theory or this idea. Based on my very limited understanding, based on my very surface level Google search. CERN is one of the world's leading centers for physics research, and it's in Switzerland.
Oh.
Its most famous tool that it uses is called the Large Hadron Collider, which is an enormous and powerful machine that accelerates tiny particles to incredibly high speeds and then smashes them together. By studying the results, scientists can test theories about how the universe works and even discover entirely new phenomenon. This kind of research is considered to be crucial for our understanding of quantum physics, elementary particles, and fundamental forces of nature. But it's inspired a large range of conspiracy theories. So some of these conspiracy theories revolve around fears that they're creating black holes that open portals to other dimensions, or causing earthquakes, or shifting the world into alternative timelines accidentally. Some people have gone so far as to suggest sabotage by time travelers, or that CERN is attempting to open up a gateway to hell.
Oh, shit.
So I guess I'm going to have to one day look into that. But it was so in this situation, people were like, CERN, it's obviously CERN. There are a lot of people who say the Mandela effect is the result of, like, the big ones are because they turn on CERN. I'm like, what is this thing? But I guess, I don't know. Crazy how people's minds can get down the rabbit hole.
Totally.
So it's definitely later than we thought it was going to be. And our brains aren't quite working, but let's wrap up with how are you feeling?
It's so funny. Like, I feel like this happens to me with Reddit where I'm like in the comments. And then I completely forget about the original post.
Oh, yeah, same. All the time. All the time.
I forgot on that last one what the original post was. We just started talking about aliens.
Oh, it was somebody coming back from the dead.
Oh, yeah.
It was a
potential
coworker.
Insurance fraud.
Yeah, but also like a bunch of people misremembering, collectively having a very different memory of the past, but also engaging with the daughter in a way that it was clear that it was a lot of people who had the same
memory.
Weird experience.
Yeah.
Anyways, how you feeling?
Good.
Not about the story, but about the whole recording and all the stories together. And
yeah, there's a lot of things that happen out there.
It sounds like you experienced a couple yourself that were.
I believe I did. Yeah, I believe I did. I have some stories.
All right, well, we'll wrap up here because it's almost midnight.
Okay.
And I have to go pick up my doggies.
Yes.
And you got to drive all the way home.
Yes.
But this was fun.
This was fun.
Can't wait to have you over again.
Yeah. This is fun. Thanks for having me as a guest.
I'm glad that you enjoyed it.
I did.
And hopefully we're able to salvage the recording from earlier, the video in some way. I'm sure we will be able to do so, but
if not, you can imagine.
Yeah, just the back.
Yeah. No, you know.
Anyways, until next time.
Until next time.